rich people, are treated pretty much universally with respect. They're treated as important in their society. People pander to them. People listen to them. People defer to them. They're held in high esteem. I mean, generally speaking, this is the way it goes. If you have a lot of money, if you have a lot of property, or what have you, people tend to be deferential towards you. And some of this has to do with genuine respect, a genuine feeling of respect for what you have presumably achieved or accomplished in your life. The presumption is that you have risen to that level of financial success, maybe through entrepreneurship or hard work or savvy, knowledge, skill, so on and so on. And they respect you also because you're potentially a source of economic well-being for many other people, especially in traditional societies. You know, maybe you're a philanthropist. Maybe people seek you out as an investor for startups and so on. So people deal with you very respectfully. Maybe it's just because your wealth translates to power in society. So it's known that you have a lot of resources at your disposal, that you have a lot of connections, you have a lot of contacts, you have a lot of influence, and so on. So people know that you could potentially help them. You could potentially help them in ways that no one else could. I mean, whatever the case may be, the fact is that the rich are generally treated with a higher degree of respect and a higher degree of deference than other people, generally speaking. And this is normal. It's not necessarily a bad thing. But there's another type of person who sees the rich very differently. There's a type of person who will see someone who's very well off, who has a lot of money, who has a lot of resources and so on, and the first thing that pops into his mind is robbery, theft, kidnapping, ransom. He immediately has a criminal predatory instinct that makes him see anyone who has wealth as a target. That's how he sees them. He wants what the rich man has, but he doesn't want to earn it. He doesn't want to develop the skills, and he doesn't want to develop the talents and the business savvy and so on. And he doesn't want to put in the hard work or build a business and so on. He just wants to kill that rich man and take his money. He's a thug. He's a criminal, a bandit. He's a menace, like a jackal that steals the food that some other animal has hunted. Well, that's the West. You know, the story of Ali Baba and the den of thieves. There was that cave where they stored all of the stolen treasures. That's Europe. Europe is nothing but a warehouse of stolen goods, pillaged primarily from Africa, India, Asia, and so on. It's nothing but a warehouse of stolen goods. That's what Europe is. I mean, if you want to know how rich the global South is, or how rich it's supposed to be, especially Africa, just look at how rich Europe is and realize that the wealth of Europe is plundered from the global South. And yet, the global South and Africa are still so rich that the plundering is ongoing. Do you understand? They have been pillaging Africa literally for centuries, but they have still not exhausted the natural wealth of that continent. In other words, all the beautiful buildings, you know, in Europe, all the infrastructure, all the extravagance, all the decadence of Europe, all of that was derived from just a fraction of the natural wealth that exists in the global South. The abundance of Africa, the abundance of the global South is sufficient to build 100 Europes, and it still won't be empty. Now, if we're talking about it like it's a person, if Africa or the global South was a person, was an individual human being, why, that person would be the most exalted, the most cherished person in the world, the most important person in the world. They'd be treated with absolutely the highest respect and deference imaginable. Everyone would try to protect that person. They would love that person. They would revere that person as the source of their own well-being, as the source of their own livelihood and their quality of life. Imagine. That would be the person who makes everything possible, materially possible, in your life. Your house, your car, your technology, your job, your income. That person would be the benefactor of every nation on earth. Or they would be celebrated. They'd be beloved by everyone. But if you think of the West as a person, well, that's that criminal. That's that kidnapper, that thief, that murderer, who doesn't look at the world's benefactor as a blessing to humanity, but as a target to victimize and rob. That's literally what happened. That's just what happened throughout history. I mean, think of the story of Hajar, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala caused the water of Zamzam to flow. When the people came and found Hajar with that well, they respected her. They respected that well belonged to her, and they asked for her permission to drink from that well. They didn't overcome her and attack her and claim the well of Zamzam as their own. That's how civilized people behave. I mean, alhamdulillah that there were no Europeans in Arabia at that time. Imagine if they had come across an endless water source in the middle of the desert. They would have seized the well of Zamzam for themselves. And until now, you'd have to buy Zamzam water from France or from the UK, and it would be 90% tap water. That's how they do. And see, everyone isn't like that. This is very important to understand. Everyone's not like that. The people of the global south traded with each other for centuries. They respected each other's sovereignty and their sovereignty over their resources. Nobody did what the West did. Nobody else has that thug mentality, that criminal mindset. Everyone else, when they see this people or that people possessing abundant, important natural resources, well, the first thing that they want to do is become friends with those people. They want to establish good relations. They want to be allies. They want to be on good terms so that the people whose resources they belong to will allow them access to those resources. There's no question of just outright overpowering those people and pillaging their resources, claiming them as your own. No, that's abnormal. That's psychopathic. Wallahi, it just confuses the reality when you use the same words for what the West did and what others did. Like saying Westerners will say other people colonized, other empires expanded, other people practiced slavery. No, we need different words. Wallahi, we need different words for what normal nations did and what you people did. Because nobody did any of these things the way that you did these things. So it's completely dishonest and completely misleading to even use the same words. I mean, you can even look at a modern example of this. In America, they have forced prison labor, which is tantamount to slavery, especially for inmates with life sentences. Okay, in America, you force prisoners to work for nothing, for the benefit of private enterprise. Okay, in Burkina Faso, they have a prison labor program too. Inmates can do agricultural work. Ibrahim Traoré just purchased a huge number of tractors just for this purpose. But in Burkina Faso, this is a voluntary program for inmates. And they can actually reduce their sentences by 3 months for every 1 month that they work. The purpose for the inmate is rehabilitation, skill development, and to facilitate their reintegration into society. And the purpose for society is to increase food production, to increase food security, and to expand the national economy. The surplus food that they produce will be used to feed inmates across the country and to sell in the markets. It's a program for self-sufficiency, food self-sufficiency, which benefits everyone in the country. Meanwhile, you force prisoners to work for nothing, for no money, no sentence reduction, and only for the profit maximization of private companies. But they'll say, well, they have prison labor and we have prison labor. It's all the same. But there's a huge qualitative difference. You're just liars. And this is the case with everything else. Imperialism, colonialism, slavery, and on and on and on. There's no comparison between the way you did these things and the way anyone else did these things. There's no comparison. They're completely different. I mean, look, no country, no land, no people ever got poorer when Islam spread to their part of the world. When the Muslim empire expanded across Africa, across Asia, across the Arab world, Persia, and so on, or even into Europe, no one was worse off. They weren't pillaged. They weren't plundered. They weren't impoverished. They weren't subjugated. They weren't exploited. No. Everywhere that Islam went, those societies benefited. They all, each and every one of them, got richer, got better, got more educated, got stronger, got safer, had more rights, had more justice. This is just a historical fact. Everyone knows that the richest man in history was Mansa Musa in the empire of Mali. See? Islam spread to Mali, and Mali became an empire in its own right and produced enormous wealth, not by stealing from others, not by exploiting from others, not by pillage, not by plunder. They produced that wealth themselves. That's not imperialism or colonization, anything like your imperialism and colonization. Which country did you ever colonize that got richer because you came? Which country got better? Which country got stronger? Which became more educated, more literate, more cultured, more civilized, more just because of Western imperialism? None. Zero. Everywhere that you went, you made it worse. Everywhere that you went, you made every place poorer, weaker, and less developed. Exactly the opposite of what happened when the Muslims came to a place and when Islam spread there. But you'll say, in your